I'm a massive fan of his films, and even if I wasn't going to be in this film, I would certainly run to watch it. So to be in it is an honour, but just to work with Chris, a guy who's so passionate about what he does, and so his ability to see everything at once is quite extraordinary. He's an amazing filmmaker. So I'm in the air, I'm a Spitfire pilot. Me and Tom play the Spitfire pilots, and we are very much in charge of providing air cover to the evacuation on the beach. I mean, it's mammoth, man, it's just huge, but I think what you'll find actually is in certain parts of this film, it's a very intimate film. It's a beautifully intimate film, especially when you watch it on the IMAX. It's a very claustrophobic film, you know, and I think that's what Chris has done superbly well, is catch the sort of frustration that those guys felt on the beach and in those boats. I mean, they didn't know what was going on. It very much is a story of survival and a community coming together, and whilst it gives a nod to our services, our brilliant services, who are still to this day, you know, amongst the best in the world, I think it really, you know, asks the question, you know, are we still together as a community? And I think, you know, in many ways we are, but in many ways we aren't. I think it's a truly remarkable piece of filmmaking. I think it's a completely unique film. It's about a very famous subject, but it's a very unique way of telling it, and I think people are going to be amazed by the way that it's told rather than what the film's about. Yeah.
Well, I was just saying to somebody else actually that I'm not the only one who thinks it, but Christopher Nolan is the greatest filmmaker working in the world today. So I didn't even bother to harbour a dream of working with him. It seemed so unlikely. To have the opportunity is magnificent, you know, and he was everything I hoped he might be and more. He's so clear about what his vision is and his execution of it, and none of it was easy. You know, it might be that they were shooting a very straightforward close-up or whatever, but in the background there are two destroyers with thousands of extras moving around, you know, and he never once seemed to be anything other than completely calm and together and knew exactly what was happening next. It was amazing, really. I'm on the land. I'm the sort of highest ranking army officer that we meet in Dunkirk, but rather like all the rest of the other guys, I have very little idea as to what exactly is happening. You know, they all expected to die, and even though this is the story of a huge military disaster, it is you know, one of those stories that you can't quite believe what actually happened within that. Well, you know, I think that one of the things that we know that Christopher does incredibly well is blockbuster. You know, he really tells his stories for the big screen. They're not for, you know, the television or for Netflix. They're, you know, there's a reason he shot it with IMAX cameras. It's because he wants you to have a fully immersive experience, and I think that's what we're going to get.
Very excited to work with Christopher Nolan, who's a great sort of filmmaking hero of mine, and on something where the subject matter is very rich, it's important, it has a lot of meaning for people on the basic human level of, you know, a heroic, courageous determination not to give up, which is applicable to lots of things in life, but also has a special place for the British public, I think. Unbelievable attention to detail and a great combination of head and heart that I think was perfect for this material. He's really a master at the top of his game, and so it was great to watch somebody like that who was in such control and in such fine form. Yeah, and I'm land, although a Navy man. My job is to get the men away from the beach via a breakwater called the Mole, a long bridge, if you like, that stretches out into the water. It's under attack. The tide fights the chance to get it done efficiently, and everybody wants on those boats, and his job is to stop panicking, try and organize the logistics, and keep hoping. Well, you feel as though you're right there in Dunkirk on that massive beach. You feel as though you're right on the edge of Europe, and right on the edge of Europe you can look across and see home. So you feel that kind of suspense. You feel that scale, and you feel we were surrounded by real people, real boats, real planes. So we didn't have to do much acting. Something very visceral. I think very visceral, very emotional. It goes straight into the adrenal system. If you want to know what it feels like to be a sitting duck vicariously, this is a couple of hours in the cinema that I think gets very close.
It's a thrill to work with Chris, and it was an honour to play one of these people who was so brave, one of these civilians. Oh, I can't tell you anything. I don't want to give away anything. I think it's going to be a thrilling film. I'd feel confident to recommend it, though I haven't seen it yet. It's very big. It's a 70mm camera that filmed it, and Chris is an expert, so I think you want to come out and see this one at the IMAX rather than on a screen at home. Unless you've got an IMAX at home. Maybe some people do. Attention to detail. And he and Emma work, it feels, obviously it isn't a student film, but because they're working together as producer and director, you feel like you're working for a family. So it's very nice. A lot of excitement.
Yeah. I mean, my first job, so I'm very lucky indeed. Chris is a wonderful man, apart from directing, but also he's a visionary. He knows what he wants and he gets what he wants. He never reshoots anything. He's always very precise. He was the most patient man on that set. Like, it was my first film, so he was completely aware of that and took his time and never put any pressure on. And yeah, it was great. My character is a civilian. He goes over on Operation Dynamo on his boat, the Moonstone, with Rylance. Plays my dad, and we go out and try and rescue as many men as possible. Think as big as you can for a film and double it. I think audiences are going to find a lot of real sort of human emotion in this film. It's very intense, but it's also immensely heartfelt, and it's a survival story more than anything. It's not a war film. It's a suspense action thriller that has so many different themes interlinked with it. It's a masterpiece.
I'm very thrilled. I love working with Chris. I'll do anything for him within reason. Oh, he can do everything, can't he? And if he says he's going to do it, he'll do it, and he'll find a way. And he challenges himself, and to push his bar, and he consistently sort of meets that bar and then pushes it a bit higher. So he's the gold standard of directors, really. I'm in the air. I'm in the Spitfire over there.
That must be pretty exciting.
Awesome, yeah. There was a lot of boys that want to fly Spitfires, and I guess I'm secretly one of them. So I've got to strike that off my fantasy bucket list in some aspect. And it's a bit like being in a nice big British, Triumph motorbike. Or the engineering is awesome. I think it's a fairly intimate, contained movie, but epic at the same time. So, and it sets in 4 different areas, like you said. Like you've got the lads. I don't want to give it too much away, but it shoots back and forth between various people who are involved, either on the beach or trying to get to the beach. And then obviously, it's a tremendous human story where actively the public decide to go, actually, we're going to go get our boys back as well, and they did. So it's a big story, but it's intimate too, and it'll be epic as well. I just think whenever Chris Nolan makes a movie, it's going to be a prestige, it's going to be good, it's going to be really good, and a lot of hard work we put into it, and a lot of the people that work with him across all elements and departments are at the top of their game and pour in everything they've got. So you can guarantee you're going to get your money's worth, but also with this particular story, it's a historical story which needs to be told and remembered, lest we forget sacrifices that would be made only in the last 60. No, it's not long. It's war finished 60, 70 years ago. I mean, it's not far away from now, and it's almost like we've forgotten that sense of what warfare is really. So it's an important subject, and told beautifully by Chris Nolan. Yeah, no, it's very, very busy. Quite overwhelming as per with a Nolan production. Everybody comes out with them.
I'm incredibly thrilled to have been involved in it. I'm a massive fan of Chris's, and I think when I first heard about him doing this story, I was kind of excited to watch it from the get-go, really. So I think being involved in it, I just feel very lucky to have been able to work with such an amazing group of actors, an amazing crew, one of the best crews I've ever worked with, and obviously Chris is amazing. So it's been a lot of fun. I feel very fortunate. I think he's just, anytime you get to work with someone who's so passionate about what they do, and that's a privilege in itself. And I think Chris is. He knows everything about the project, so he's kind of the conductor, but he also knows how to play every instrument as well. So it's pretty inspiring to be around him and get to watch him work. It's very much about it's just a basic kind of human instinct survival story. I don't think you can kind of classify it as a war film, really. It's an emotional story. Happens to be set within an incredibly important piece of British history, which I think just aids it in kind of how amazing the film's ended up. I watched it for the first time in a cinema full of people, and it feels like you're watching it on your own. I think it's an incredibly personal, emotional experience watching this film. It kind of surrounds you in a way, and I think there's so much suspense, and it's an amazing story within, like I said, such an incredible piece of history. It's kind of got every ingredient of being a great film, really, and with someone like Chris doing that is amazing.
Amazing, I mean, it was an amazing script on the page, and I think it's turned out to be an extraordinary film, so that's always what you want. Well, my character actually is the only one I think that exists on both two of the intersecting timelines. So you see him sort of before some terrible calamity, and then this one, and then you see him on the boat on the Moonstone. So. Well, I mean, everyone's talked about how Chris likes to shoot things for real, and he does. So there was real Spitfires, real destroyers. Things were going off and exploding. The sea was on fire. That all happened, and it makes the audience experience it, I think, like much more than something that's computer generated. Well, I watched it, and you're kind of holding your breath for the whole movie. It's one of the most tense cinematic experiences I've ever sat through. So that to me is like pure cinema. Well, the films speak for themselves, don't they? He operates in these big, huge blockbuster films. Yet within them, I think they're stimulating and sophisticated and make you think, and always got very strong performances in them. So that's kind of what you want.
Oh man, unreal! Like a Chris Nolan movie. Being a fan of Batman, man, it's to come on board with this is like, yeah, I'm blessed, am I? What made him stand out? The Spitfires, the battleships, the explosions, you know what I mean? And he's a good lad, like, he knows his stuff. He's one that, they say no one can beat your own imagination, like, well, he's one that he bet my imagination, and I think he beats everyone else's imagination, you know what I mean? With what he puts on the screen, like. But, like, yeah, he's looking for an adventure, totally naive to it all, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It was just epic, it was. I can't say I felt like I was in Dunkirk, because that'd be rude to say that. I can't say I would like it, but I mean, yeah, what Chris created for us is it's something extraordinary, like, you know what I mean? I think they're gonna learn and be educated. That being PG-13 is it's good, the young, and that'll learn from it, and because I didn't know a lot about it, so hopefully they go away and they get a sense of the bravery and the courage those lads had, and I mean there was Irish involved as well. So
yeah, I was very happy to be involved. I think everyone was. It's such an amazing story and film in general. I think everyone just felt very happy to be there. It was a lovely space to work in. Yeah, his style is very particular. I think of directing. I could go on. I think there's hundreds of things that make him, who he is and gives him the gravity he holds, but he was just so hands-on and present as a director, and I really respect that about him. So I play a character called Tommy, and he's just represents the everyman British soldier on the beach, young and unexperienced, and yeah, it's pretty big, isn't it? I mean, yeah, we're in Leicester Square. Everything's been shut off, and it's pretty big, I think. Yeah, but the way he works is very interesting because when you're actually doing the work, he doesn't make it feel like that. He's very intimate with the shots, despite the fact that his sets are incredible and you've got all these amazing people working with him. Yeah, we did a lot of real shots. We used a lot of real sets. We used a lot of real boats. Chris, I think, wanted very much with this film, as I feel like he does with most of his films, to ground it in a sense of reality that you can only get if you use certain tools. I think audiences are in store for a mad suspense thriller. It's just incredibly relentless and really puts you in the action, like a film I haven't seen in a while, really.
Oh, it was just a wonderful pleasure. I had a few friends involved as well. Jack Loudon, one of the other actors, is a friend of mine, so to work with him as a colleague once again was great. And then to work with some heroes as well, men that I watched become sensational in their craft, and then just to come up and represent for myself and be a part of that, and really be shadowed by Christopher Nolan in this epic tale and very special deliverance of a story like this was quite wonderful. Well, the thing with Chris is that he knows everyone's jobs inside out better than they do. So to be able to be next to someone that knows about every single lens that's put on the camera, the weight of the camera, how the costumes have been made, how they've been burnt to create a different light source. The list would go on and on. But then also he's so technically engaged with all that stuff, and then can switch off and then talk to you as a human being about how to deliver a performance just as an actor. And I think that's quite wonderful to be able to go from a huge scale and then bring it very privately. It's a wonderful place to be. So I'm one of the young soldiers that you meet in the film, and the rest you just have to wait and see. Well, there's hardly any CGI in this, and that's because Chris loves to do things for real. So majority of what you see is, if you see a plane hitting water, you will see a plane hitting water. If you see a destroyer sinking, you probably are seeing a destroyer sinking. If you're seeing an actor struggle for breath, it's probably because he actually is. I think it's a thrilling tale, but a very kind of poignant tale about, survival. And when we join together, unite together, we can tackle anything. Even at the last moment of all disaster, we can still pull through. And there's light at the end of the tunnel always. No, look at it, it's great, it's wonderful. I walk through you all the time, and it's with my head down and, and very quietly. So to be here now, it's quite thrilling, actually. Yeah.
I think, like most British people, it's a story we grew up with. It's really in our bones. But Emma and I made a fateful voyage on a friend's small boat across to Dunkirk about 20 years ago, and it was a very difficult crossing. And in taking part in that, when people weren't dropping bombs on us, we weren't heading into a war zone, I think our admiration for the people who did that in 1940 and went to help with the evacuation was cemented and enhanced. And I think it's just a story that I think we were both surprised hadn't been told in modern cinema. Yeah, the story, broadly speaking, is divided into 3 points of view: land, sea and air. And it's really an attempt to stay in a human scale of storytelling, a subjective form of storytelling, but get across, as the storylines come together, get across the bigger picture of what happened during the evacuation.
The northern European weather in the summer, I would say. It was extremely challenging. We were on a beach where we had sand being blown at us. We were on the water that was very choppy. I mean, it was pretty relentless, but it was hard not to think about the fact that it was that much harder for the people who actually went through it. So, well, I mean, first of all, Chris always likes to shoot as much as possible for real. So we were attaching IMAX cameras to the wings of Spitfires. We were, shooting with real ships and destroyers, and it's a huge movie.
Well, I'm hoping an intense and suspenseful experience. It's a great story that people may feel they know, but there's probably more to it than perhaps they're familiar with. First and foremost, we want to create a very engaging entertainment and a really immersive experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!